I've been a primary care doctor for 39 years. Someone told me this the other day. They go, "Oh, you switched from having a prescription and a stethoscope to having a book." My whole goal stays the same, is to help people have a better life. When I was writing my book, the publicist was like, "There's 300 books on stress." And I go, "Well, that means they're not working if there's 300 books, because if they were working, there'd only be one book, right?"
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua Evans. I'm a clinical mental health counseling student at Liberty University. With me today is my co-host, Trevor Zelstra. Zalstra. Zalstra. I can never pronounce it right. And so, Trevor, you're just going to have to give me a little bit of grace on that one, please.
Yes, sir.
And Kevin Odom. And I do know how to pronounce his name a little bit better. With us today is our guest, Dr. Gary Sprouse. I've been instructed I can just call him Dr. Gary, which makes life a whole lot easier for me. But Dr. Gary has some interesting things that he would like to discuss with us today, and I'll let him kind of give an intro of that a little bit. So Dr. Gary, tell me a little bit about your model of stress and things of that nature.
Yeah, I've been a primary care doctor for 39 years. So I just retired about a year and a half ago, which is what I'm very happy about too. I'm enjoying that. I enjoy being a doctor, but I'm enjoying my retirement too. And it turns out, someone told me this the other day. They go, "Oh, you switched from having a prescription and a stethoscope to having a book." I'm like, "Yeah." And my whole goal stays the same, is to help people have a better life, right? So as a primary care doctor, I had a lot of patients coming to me and telling me how stressed out they were, and how it was affecting their blood pressure and their diabetes, and they couldn't sleep, and they had skin rashes, and their asthma was worse. And so I started delving into all these different models for, where's all our stresses coming from. And what I read was, most of the books kind of list the top 100 stresses. And they go, "Oh, your wife dies, or you lose your job, or what," and they go down the list. And then they go, "Well, that's really stressful, so let's find something to help with your stress." And they give you these generic prescriptions for meditation or mindfulness or relaxation technique or whatever, right? It's not working. And I'm like when I was writing my book, the publicist was like, "There's 300 books on stress." And I go, "Well, that means they're not working if there's 300 books, because if they were working, there'd only be one book, right?" So I decided, so as a doctor, I'm used to writing a prescription, and the prescription says, "Hey, this is really good medicine for your blood pressure, and it's going to work great, but it might have a few side effects, like it might make you feel a little dizzy in the beginning, it might make some difficulty, with your vision or something, but we're going to work on that." So when I applied that concept to human stresses, here's what I got out of that. So humans have these amazing skills. So we can envision the future. We can tell right from wrong. We can tell good and bad. Most other animals cannot do that. And even if they can, it's some little bit. And here's the problem. All those skills come with some side effects. So if you can envision the future, the side effect is then you have to worry about it. You're like, "Wait, what?" So my 1-year-old grandson, he can't envision the future yet. He doesn't have that skill. So guess what? He doesn't worry. So he doesn't sit at the breakfast table eating his banana going, "Dad, how are we going to pay for college?" Like, it doesn't come up. So he doesn't worry. And I have demented patients that I used to take care of that, had lost the skill. So they had it at some point, but then they lost the ability to envision the future. And guess what? They don't worry. They don't sit around in the nursing home going, "Oh my God, son, how are we going to pay for this nursing home bill next week? It's really expensive here." It doesn't come up because they can't do it. So when psychologists tell us, "We'll just live for today," you're like, "Well, that works." But what that's really saying is, just give up your skill of envisioning the future, because it has a side effect. And you're like, no, I want to keep the skill because it's a great skill to have. Let's lose the side effect. And so then I started writing this book, and I was telling Kevin, I wrote the second half of the book first. Here's all these skills that we have, and here's the side effects to them, and here's the stresses that are coming. But then when I started talking to patients, like, "Well, if you didn't have all these stresses, where would you be?" And they looked at me with this quizzical look on, "I don't know. I never really thought about that." Like, all I wanted was to have less stress. And I'm like, "Wait, but if we don't know where we're trying to get to, you can't go into GPS and go, 'Hey, I want to go somewhere.'" And they're like, "Where do you want to go?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And they're like, "That doesn't work, right?" So that's when I started writing about the happy place. And I was like, wow, now this is freaking cool. So the happy place, turns out that everybody's happy place is different, right? Like if I said to you, "What's your happy place?" You'd say one thing, right? Everybody's different. But here's the key. They all have the same, and I look at it as their happy place as a home. And they all have the same rooms. So they all have a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and a bedroom and a bathroom, right? And a porch maybe. And it's like, so everybody's has the same rooms. They just decorate it differently. I mean, they're different sizes. Maybe some are big, some are small. Some have pink wallpaper, some have green this, right? So they're all decorated differently, but they all have the same ingredients. And when you know what the ingredients are, then you go, oh, I can get to that place. Kevin was talking about like being existential. I'm like, oh, that fits right in with what I'm talking about because the happy place has things like contentment and gratitude and fulfillment and hope and safety and all these kind of things. So it's like, yeah, when you start seeing that, then you go, okay, I want to get to my happy place and live there. What's keeping me from there? Oh, yeah, all these stupid stresses that are my roadblocks to get me there. And the stresses are really side effects to our skills. So let's get rid of the side effects, keep the skills, and then I get to live in my happy place.
Very nice. So, if I understand you correctly, you kind of identified that, hey, people who live in the moment, they don't have this stressor, they don't have this stress in their life. And so essentially your whole focus has been to take out the stress component of the planning that comes with worrying and, oh, is this going to be paid? Is this going to happen? Is this not? Dealing a lot with, I, I think of it a lot with mindfulness, and just kind of focusing on what you can control, essentially throwing out the rest because you can't do nothing about it right now anyway.
Well, okay, I hear what you're saying, right? So mindfulness is a great skill. Anytime you have more awareness of what's going on, it gives you more power, right? But what I find is I want people to be able to live in all three tenses of their life. I want them to be able to live in the past and in the present and in the future because humans spend a crazy amount of time in the future. So to say to human, don't live in the future, like it's impossible. Like we just think what we had to do today. Like we started this thing in April going, okay, we're going to be on the podcast in July. And then we had a schedule. And then like, no, we had to spend a lot of time in the future. Like you can't live as a human without future. So the question is not, let's just live for today. It's let's figure out how to deal with the side effect that comes along with having a future. So one of the things that we had to learn was as humans, this is kind of weird. Like we're the only organism that knows we're going to die. Like my dog does not know she's going to die. She just lays around and eats and goes to the bathroom, right? And then barks at another dog when it comes in the neighborhood. But she doesn't go around going, what's going to happen? Like, what's the point to all this? Because I'm going to die in a year anyway, right? Like they don't think that because they don't have that skill. So we had the skill of envisioning the future, which then said, oh, well, that means you're going to die somewhere. So we had to figure out how to deal with that. So I think that religion was one of the answers to that dilemma, which is, hey, when you die, you're going to go to heaven. What a great place. Or you're going to reincarnate and come back again. Or you right. So we had to make up some idea that was really cool. So it made it worthwhile to die or made it not so scary to die.
Okay, so I have to just kind of come out and ask, how do you get rid of those stressors?
Okay. So you have to, so the way I wrote the book, so it's called Highway to Your Happy Place, a roadmap to less stress. So I wrote the book as here's your happy place. Here's the ingredients of your happy place. And I've expanded a little bit since I wrote the books, and then the next 6 chapters are like worry, guilt, regret, low self-esteem, boredom, and being overwhelmed. So I just separated out each stress because here's the cool thing, right? So I would have a patient come to me and say, Doc, I'm so stressed out. I'm like, what happened? They go, my spouse died. I'm like, wow, that's like top of the list, right? Yeah, but I can't bring your spouse back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have that power. Not yet, anyway. But here's what I can do. When you start looking, because what I wrote about, these are the ingredients that make it stressful. Because there's some people when their spouse dies, they're like, woo, finally, I'm on my own, right? Other people are like devastated and they can't go on. The statistics are when somebody's been married a long time and their spouse dies, there's a real good chance they're going to die, right? Within the next year. So then I started going, well, if you're taking my ideas, you go, well, okay, what makes it so stressful? You go, oh, because you're worried about what's going to happen. Oh, you feel guilty about this. Oh, you regretted not doing that. Oh, you're kind of bored because you don't know who to go to the movies with. Oh, you're kind of overwhelmed because you got so much crap going on. And your self-esteem took a hit because your partner just went away, right? So I can't fix that your spouse died. I can't bring your spouse back, but I can do something about your guilt and regret and your worry and your boredom. I can do something about that, which then makes that whole process easier for the person to deal with.
No,
And
so
the
it's kind
nice
of like,
thing is, it doesn't even matter what culture you come from because every human does this. Like what an Asian will worry about might be different than what you and I worry about, but it's still the same process.
so you're worried about, obviously you can't bring the spouse back, or you can't change the situation itself, but you want to take out those little bricks one at a time to
Yes.
kind of make the wall a little bit lower so they can kind of see through the other side.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dr. Sprouse, what kind of methods do you use to begin? What progresses you to the beginning point to help a person deal with their grief, their depression, their anxiety, their senses that they're going through? What is the beginning part of the process?
When they come in the office and they're telling me something, my first answer is just stop it. No, I'm just kidding. I
So,
saw that on.
so,
Yeah, just
but
stop
you,
it. Don't do it anymore. Right now. Anyway,
but you,
kidding.
you said that you're retired. So now what do you do?
Yeah. Now
Since
that.
you're not a,
So now
you're not a
my job.
PCP
You weren't here
anymore.
for this. Yeah, but my job now is to see. So I don't see patients anymore. Now I see clients,
Right.
and it's like, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now I'm the stress reducer. I'm the less stressed doc. So now my job is to reduce their stress. So now, be serious now. So when someone comes in, I had patients come in and say, "Doc, I worry that I worry too much," and I go, "Well, then you probably do, right?" So how do you worry less? So here's the first question: like, if I say to a patient, "Tell me what worry is," and they look at me like, "Oh yeah, sure, I got this one because I know how to use it in a sense," and they go, "Wait, it's," and you see them stumble because they don't have a real good definition of worry is. So if you don't know what it is, then how are you going to fix it? So, like as a doctor, like 38 years ago, even like I went to Jamestown, which is in Virginia, and I was talking to the apothecary down there, Williamsburg is where I was at, and I was like, "Well, how'd you guys treat diabetes 300 years ago, right?" And they go, "Oh, well, all we knew about diabetes in those days was that your sugar was too high." And of course, here's how they know: they would test your urine with they put it on their tongue, and if it was sweet, they're like, "Oh yeah, you got diabetes." I'm like, fortunately, we have better tests for that now.
Right.
Right? But what could you say to somebody if all you knew about diabetes was your sugar was too high? You would say eat less sugar. That's it. So it helps some people, but if you were type 1 diabetic, you just died because that didn't work, right? But as science went on, we learned, oh, it has something to do with your pancreas and your insulin and your liver and your stomach hormones and your insulin transport. Our tools got way, way better, right? So now our treatment of diabetes, even from the 40 years that I treated, has changed so dramatically. It's like hard to keep up. So what I see with things like worry is we're still like testing their urine and going, yeah, your sugar's too high because patients don't have a good definition. Like we might have a definition, but they don't know it. And so they're like struggling because then I go, well, how would you fix that? They're like, oh, I don't know, right? It's just worry, right? So here's the definition I use for worry, which is I have the ability to envision the future, but then I focus on all the bad things that can happen. And then here's the key is then I have a fear reaction right now. So what happens with worry is you're having this fear reaction to something that hasn't happened. It's just a thought in your head. But our future is so real, it's a part of our environment. So it feels real. And you're like, ah, and you're having this stress reaction. And so, we could drive our car 100 miles an hour for a while. But after a while, then the car starts breaking down. And our bodies are no different. Like our fear reaction was designed to go for a couple minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then you either got away from the line that was trying to eat you or you got eaten. Either way, the fear reaction stopped. But for humans, because our environment around us is fairly safe, that fear reaction go on and on and on. And it can wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning and it can irritate you when you're trying to eat lunch. And it just goes on day and day and day and day. And there's literally nothing to make it stop. And so then the question is, if that's the definition of worry, then how do you fix it, right? So the two tools that I talk about the most are the first one is called realistic optimism. So humans, one of our skills is we have choices. Like we can go, hey, I want vanilla or I want chocolate or I want this or I want that, right? So we can choose. So we have a tendency, there's a human tendency to focus on the negative, but we can choose to focus on the positive. So to me, the negative focus is sort of like a habit. And it's like, so we got to change the habit, which is not easy, as I'm sure you guys know. It's not easy changing habits, but it is possible. So if you change somebody and say, instead of focusing on the negative, let's focus on the positive. So I would do a seminar. I go, tell me things that are going to go bad in the next 10 years. And people are like writing fears, like, blah, 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 right? I go, tell me some good things that are going to happen. And they're like staring at the ceiling with their pencil. I'm like, because they're not even used to thinking about things that might go well. And so you have to get them to start switching to, let's think about all the things that could go right. And then what happens is when you start thinking about things that are going to go right, guess what that does? It makes you feel good right now. Like, whoa, right? So now, so I use my own work, right? So if I'm looking at a situation, I'm like, like I'm going to use my wife. She'll look at it and go, oh, this is going to go bad, which then makes you feel bad. I'm like, no, you know what, honey? We did all these things to prepare it, so it's going to be fine, and everything's going to turn out okay. And so even if it doesn't turn out okay, I've had months of feel like it's going to be okay and feeling good. So even if it doesn't go bad, even if it does go bad, then I have the energy to deal with it. But that's the second half. So it's called realistic optimism. So the optimism is I'm focusing on the good things that are going to happen. But the realism part is I can't ignore the fact that bad things could happen. And that's where, and I think you used the word planning, but it's planning without fear. And that's the key. It's the fear that gets us into trouble. So then I have the second tool I call the worry organizer, and it's divvied up into 5 pieces. And what I find is that when people worry, it's in their head, and it just goes over and over and over and over because there's nothing to make it stop. But if it's written down, then you only have to do it once. So it takes more effort, but then you only have to do it once. And as my good friend tells me, that the palest ink is better than the best memory. So once it's written down, then every time you wake up at 2 a.m, you're like, wait, do I have anything to add to what I wrote? No. Okay, go back to sleep, right? So it's like, so it's organized into 5 things. So the first one is, what am I worried about? So like I had a patient that was worried about breast cancer. So she came to me, she said, I'm worried I'm going to get breast cancer. So then the next column is, well, why are you worried about that? And she's like, well, my sister and my mom both had breast cancer. And you're like, okay, well, then it's reasonably worried about that, right? Here's the third column, and this was important to her. The third column is, well, how likely is it to happen? And if it does happen, how bad would it be? So for her, she was like, well, there's a 100% chance that I'm going to get breast cancer because of my family history. And there's a 100% chance that I'm going to die because my mother and sister both died. And you're like, whoa. You're like, whoa, let's take a step back here. So as a doctor, I knew what the statistics were. And I'm like, okay, here's the real numbers. So if you have a family history of breast cancer, your chance of getting breast cancer is 15%. And she looked at me like, wait, that's it? And I go, yeah, that's it. And I said, and because we're going to catch you early, you have an 85% chance of survival. And she looked at me, you could see her whole body language change. And she's like, oh my God, right? So we gave her life back because she had had a death sentence. She was going to die of breast cancer. I'm like, no, it's a 15% chance and an 85% chance. What? So just by looking at those numbers, we were able to change her view and her worry, right? Just by looking at that. And that column becomes important because what I see are kids and parents argue this all the time because the parent is going, well, even if it's not likely to happen, if it does happen, it's going to be really dangerous. And the kid's like, yeah, but it's not going to happen, so I don't have to worry about the danger, right? So they end up arguing back and forth. But if you can put some numbers on it, then you don't call them a sniveling little kid and they don't call you a crappy little parent, right? So it's like now you're talking like, well, I think it's 5%. No, I think it's 10%, right? So it's a lot easier of an argument. So then the fourth category is, well, okay, how do I keep it from happening? So for this lady, we made sure she had a BRCA gene and did self-exams and did breast and mammograms, blah, blah, blah. And then the last column is this, the important one is the planning without fear, which is like, okay, if it happens, what do we do? So if you got breast cancer, what would you want to do? Well, you want to make sure you got life insurance and you want to make sure it's paid up. You want to make sure you got a will made out. You want to make sure you know where the best breast cancer centers are. And it's like, so when you figure all that out and it's all written down, then you have it on a piece of paper and you can show it to your spouse. You can show it to your doctor. You can show it to your therapist. You can show it to your friends. Hey, can you add anything to this? Do you think this is right? And so now you've planned for the future. You've focused on the good things, but you've planned for the bad things. And now you don't have to have fear anymore.
Does anyone else have that one tool that makes building a website a breeze? In an era driven by digital change, WebHash is the indispensable tool that holds the key to effortless website creation. Create websites that endure, defy censorship, and bypass any single point of failure. As cutting-edge technology redefines reality, seize the power to build beyond limits. Join the Web3 revolution now and forge paths others can only dream of. Visit our site today and build your legacy. Building my own space on the web was always a grind until I hit up WebHash. Their no-code builder is my ace. It's swift and solid. It's like rocking a digital fortress that's immune to the typical shutdowns. Level up your web presence without stress. Ready to stake your claim in the digital realm? Dive into WebHash today, connect your Web3 wallet, and get started. They have multiple subscription plans, from a free version to a lifetime subscription. Check them out today at webhash.com. Most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast, helping to raise awareness to critical topics in the healthcare field. Our official website was built using the WebHash platform. Throughout the projects that the One Moment movement built on WebHash, they stood behind and supported it all the way. Sign up and start building your website today. Don't forget to visit onemoment.chain.box and subscribe to our social media channels.
Well, see, a lot of what you were just saying too, makes me think of practicing my practice of DBT and mixing it with mixing narrative therapy in there. Because I get a lot of questions, right, when I help people understand that it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, depressed, afraid, guilt, jealous, right? It's, some of the questions that arise will be, well, what if I make this decision and this happens and that happens and this happens and that happens? And okay, who says you're stuck there? That's my only question to them, right? And people get so baffled and bamboozled when I just ask that one simple question. It's like, no, it's a serious question. Who says you're stuck there? I'm not saying you're stuck there. You're the only one saying that you're stuck there because we're catastrophizing because we don't plan, we don't think, we don't, add to that list infinitum. And when I challenge them on that one simple question, right? And it's a question straight out of narrative therapy. Josh, I don't know if you've taken that class yet or not, but that's one simple question out of that one whole theory. It's a beautiful theory. I love it. That's my favorite part there. We can rewrite that story anytime, day, night, whatever. And guess what? When we rewrite that story, we're still not stuck with it.
So there was a book that I just finished reading and basically talked about that. And he's like, so I think of our lives as a book, right? So the first half of the book, the part we've lived, is written in pen, like it's done. Here it is, right? But the second half of the book, or part we haven't lived, our future, it's written in pencil. So you can erase it. Or you can and so what happens to some people is the pages get torn out. Like you're like living with your spouse and all of a sudden they die. This whole back half of your book just got ripped out. You're like, right? So that's kind of freaks you out. But I go, you still got a pencil. Just you can keep writing in. Now you just got to write a different ending to the story. And so, but this goes back to why future is so important. Like one of the reasons why humans are so stressed out now, like my dog, her environment only goes as far as she can sense. So if she can see it or hear it or smell it, that's in her environment and she reacts to it. But if it's outside her environment, there's no reaction. So she doesn't really care what's going on in Iran. And she doesn't really care what's going on in Ukraine. Like it doesn't faze her, right? So we're watching TV and I'm sitting there freaking out and she's just laying there like a rug. And I'm like, what's the matter with you, dog? Don't you see what's going on? So it's like, so for humans, our environment is not just what we can see and smell and taste and all that. It's now become the world because of our media and our technology. Now I probably know more about what's going on in Ukraine than Ukrainians do because they probably can't get the TV because their satellite got cut out or something, right? So we have way more things to consider to our environment. But now we also include not just the Earth, but the universe, right? So how many movies do we have of an alien coming or an asteroid destroying the Earth, whatever? So now we got to worry about the whole universe. And then, by the way, and forever, right? So I've had patients say to me, you know what? The sun's going to burn out in 4 billion years. So what's the point? Like 4 billion years. You know how long 4 billion years is? Right. But you get the point. So when you start trying to keep all of that safe, what? That's overwhelming. So what you're hearing is people are going, well, if I make this decision now, what's going to happen in the future? And you're like, well, I don't know. And here's the problem we run into is we don't have crystal balls. So we're always making decisions without all the information because we don't know where things are going to head. So we're always making decisions without all the information. And then but then as we go on, we get stuck with the results and you're like, whoa. And that's where, so one of the stresses I talk about is regret. And you're going, well, where's regret come from? Well, it turns out that's something that you made a decision and now you're living with the consequence of it. And so now you're going, oh, that decision didn't go as well as I thought it should. And so I regret making that decision, right? And you're like, well, that's a really bad feeling. People don't like to feel regret. And you're like, but where'd it come from? So it came from our ability to have choice. So other animals don't have this. Like my dog doesn't choose what food to eat. I just give her food and she's hungry, she eats. She's not hungry, she doesn't eat, right? That's what her brain tells her to do. We have the ability to say, you know what, I'm starving, but I want to lose 10 pounds, so I'm not going to eat. You're like, oh, that chocolate cake looks really good, but no, I'm not, right? No other animal does that. My dog would not be not eating if she was hungry and there was some food there. No. So we have that ability, but then the side effect is then we regret our choices. And so when I talk about it as well, how do you get less regret? So you have to go back and go, like, so I use myself as an example. Like I bought this computer system and the only person in my office who knew how to use it was the office manager. And I'm like, ooh, if I buy the system and something happens to you, then I'm screwed, right? My office is screwed. She's like, no, Dr. Sprouse, don't worry about it. I'm here forever. I've turned down jobs that pay me more, blah, 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 right? So we bought the computer. Before it ever came, she goes, oh, well, I said I would turn down a job that was $10 an hour more, but I got a job that was $20 an hour more, so I'm leaving. I'm like, no, right? So I could have regretted my decision, but I went backwards and I like, based on the information that I had at the time, that decision was a good decision. And then I just have to deal with the consequences. But I have to beat myself up with regret because the decision I made at the time was good. It just didn't turn out good because the environment changed.
Thanks for sharing that, Doctor, because that amplifies to me something that's a new psychology expression called toxic positivity. So you can think in gratitude and humility and all these positive expressions, but still have to deal with the negative aspect of life along life's terms.
Whoa.
And yeah, it's a strange thing. It's a newly discovered expression in the psychological area. So I was doing some study about it and found that all the things that are being described as tools to use to remain positive sometimes can be detrimental to your psychological being. Something that Kevin had just said a few moments ago is about catastrophizing. And that was like a big red flag to me because so many people seem to worry about things that they have no control over, or they just obsess so much with the worrisome part of it that they don't know how to combat, even if it's toxic positivity, they don't know how to use their cognitive recollection of things that are still remain positive, even if they're having a negative experience. But you could go the other way too and be too positive. So there's a fine line that you have to walk in the sense of recovering from the worrisome, the depression.
Right. That's why the term is realistic optimism. It's not just unfettered optimism, because that's what your toxic positivity about. You have to be realistic. So when I was writing my book, I'm thinking, I'm being positive. This book's going to be awesome. I'm going to be in the Oprah show and I'm going to help all these people. And then she retired. I'm like, fine. Well, I'm going to be in the Ellen show. And then she retired. I'm like, dang it, right? So now I'm going to be on the Kelly Clarkson show, but I don't even know if she's going to make, right? So it's like, but I'm thinking, oh, when this book gets done and people are going to be helped and everybody's going to be in their happy place and less stressed out, how great is that? Which then made me feel good. But I wasn't ready to quit my day job. So I kept being a doctor for a long time because I knew that there are very few authors that make a living out of being an author. And so I had to be realistic about it and go, oh, you know what? I think this is going to be great, but I got to be realistic and go, yeah, the chances are small. So I got to keep my day job while I'm writing this book. So now I have enough resources that I don't have to work as a doctor. So now I can devote all my time to helping people get out of their stress lives and get into their happy place, which is great. So now I can just be optimistic because I was realistic for a long time.
That's a great.
Yeah. One of the things that you said, Kevin, was about emotions. And, emotions are an interesting thing. So when I would say to people, tell me what emotions are, like I said this there's a guy, Burns, this guy Burns, he wrote Feeling Good or something. And I went to one of his lectures, and he spent 2 hours talking about emotions and this and that. He gave, it was a nice talk. So I came up to him after. I was like, so, Dr. Burns, tell me what emotions are. And he looked at me like, because nobody had ever asked him that question. And he's like, well, it was anger and fear. And I go, no, those are examples of emotions. Tell me what an emotion is. And he's like, well, it's not this pencil. It's not real. I'm like, yeah. And then he goes, next question. Because it was clear that nobody had ever asked him that question, and he didn't know what the answer was, right? And unlike what he wrote in his book, he didn't go, I never thought about that. Tell me more, right? Anyway, so what I found as a doctor, when you start evaluating, so emotions to me are a pre-programmed push button reaction. And they were designed when we couldn't think. So if I'm sitting in a bush and I hear this noise rustling, I don't want to have to think, oh, is that a lion? Is that a tiger? No, I'm just running, get the hell out of here, right? So my body was set up to instantly, literally instantly, jazz up and get ready to run away or hide or turn around and fight, right? So, but I don't have to think about those things. They just go off like that. And that's what our bodies were designed for. The problem that we run into is now we live in an environment that doesn't have lions and tigers. So when I hear something rustling in the bush, if my brain goes to oh, is that a lion? And I start running, wait, we don't have lion and tigers where I'm at. It's probably just a bunny, right? So now I'm having these fear reactions to something or these anger responses to something that shouldn't be generating those things. But we've translated into somebody cut me off in traffic. People are taking a gun out or shooting somebody because they cut them off. No, stop. That, right? You call me a name, right? So some of our emotions have gotten way out of control, and one of the things that I see as kids, as they grow into adults, one of the things we learn is how to control our emotions. We need to control them because they're not always designed. They're getting used for things they weren't designed to be used for. And so what I say to my patients, I think about this. I was watching this TV show where this actress went through 4 distinct emotions in 30 seconds and didn't say a word. You could see in her body language and her facial expressions, 4 different emotions in 30 seconds, no word. I was like, wow, that's Olympic acting, right? We don't need to be that good. But we need to know that we can do that, or at least have some semblance of that, right? So I had a client that I was talking with, and I was like, okay, she gets angry very easily because she gets triggered. So her boss yells at her because he has his own issues. And when he yells at her, she gets upset and she starts yelling back. And I'm like, whoa. So we started working on how are we going to not react to that? What's a better way to react? So, because if you start getting angry and he's angry, you're just going to ramp it on up and everybody's going to end up in trouble, right? So I said, okay, we're going to talk tomorrow and we're going to practice. I'm going to be your boss and I'm going to yell at you and you're going to practice the skills, right? And she goes, well, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. 2 days later, she calls me. She says, Dr. Ross. I'm like, what? She goes, I got fired. I'm like, what? And she goes, my boss started yelling at me and I started yelling at him. And he goes, why don't you just take the day off? And she goes, why don't I just not come back? He goes, fine, don't come back. I'm like, no, that was exactly what I said not to do, right? So it's her anger got her into trouble when it didn't need to, right? If she had been willing or able to control those reactions, then that situation would have gone much better. And so what I find is that humans, we have these emotions. So one of the books that I'd read said, get this now, we are emotional organisms that can think. You're like, what? Yeah. So think about that one for a second. So our emotions come first, then our thinking comes second. So we're always reacting, and then thinking comes in later. And so this other book I'd read by a neuroscientist who had a hemorrhage in her brain, she basically lost half her brain. And so what she ended up coming up with is this model where the brain's set up into 4 parts. So there's the thinking part, there's the emotional part, there's the one with everything part, and there's the daredevil part. And so what she lost was the thinking and fear part. So all she had was I'm one with the universe and let's try it. Why not? And she goes, it was great, right? Her life was awesome. Everything was connected and nothing was impossible to try to do. But then that part of her brain, the other part of her brain started coming back and she's like, no, I don't want that part, right? I don't want all that fear. I don't want all that thinking and overanalyzing, blah, blah, blah. But what I got out of this was, and I use the analogy of a barbershop quartet, that really what we want from our patients and clients is we want their brains to be in harmony and we want no one part to be overriding all the other parts. So when you get to use all 4 parts of your brain, it's awesome. But what I find is the emotional part of our brain takes over very quickly. So you could be thinking, all of a sudden your fear or your anger take over, and it literally shuts off the thinking part of your brain, which is what happened to this client. Like her thinking part of her brain just shut down. All the things that I had talked to her about, do this, do that, try this, all went away. It wasn't there anymore. She didn't have it until 15 minutes later, she's like, oh, Dr. Sprouse said I should have said this. But then it's too late. She already had done the reaction. So one of the things we talk about, I'm sure you guys have heard this before, it's not something new, is like what I say is our emotions take 1 neuron. The trigger goes off, 1 neuron, the emotion goes off, okay? For thinking, the button goes off, 5 neurons later, you're now thinking, okay? Well, you already reacted with 1 neuron. It's way too late. 5 took too long, right? Sorry. So what I say to people is so our emotions are responses, right? But they're not telling us what to do. They're just a physiological reaction. So then there's this delay where you go, okay, I'm really angry and I'm going to yell at my boss. You're like, whoa, let's put a little delay in there so that I can get my brain, my thinking part of my brain to kick in, right? So like I did this with my son. It's like, here's a piece of paper. He's like, what's that for? So when you get angry, tear it up. And then, because that gives you your 5 neurons in your thinking part of your brain to kick in. And then, you're right, and you take all your anger out, and then you go, okay, now let's talk about this, right? So that's one of the skills that I think every person should have.
In the heart of the city, a vision was born, not just a piece of clothing, but a movement. Vital Apparel reflects not just the raw edge of the streets, but the spirit of innovation to bring about change in mental health worldwide. It's more than a style, it's a statement, a blend of comfort with an attitude made for those who refuse to be average. Embrace the culture, ignite your passion, and wear the revolution. Discover your new favorite piece today and be part of something larger than life. Visit our link now at vtlapparel.com to grab your next outfit. Use promo code ONEMOMENT to get 15% off your order. Why support us? The founders of Vital Apparel, Hung Dao and Alex Kozub, sought out to raise awareness, seeking to change the stigma around mental health. 5% of their profits are donated to Brain Research Foundation, furthering the research in mental health. Vital Apparel sponsors the One Moment podcast. We partnered with one another so that together we can make a global impact on mental health, substance use, and suicide, saving lives one moment at a time around the world. Help us break the stigma. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast and to connect with us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels to stay up to date on our episodes. Subscribe now. Some photos in this ad were created by Grok.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dr. Gary, that you talk about that, because there's actually a form of CBT, which, the buzzword CBT is neuroinformed CBT, and it essentially talks about traditional CBT is a top-down processing, where we think logically before we act, where bottom-up processing is the other way. And it's a lot of times what they found was clients came in and they were essentially like you were talking about, I don't know what happened. I just blanked and I reacted. Right. And so it's working on, that bottom up. When you think about, I believe it's the brainstem, it's closer to the brainstem. So it's closer, like you said, to that single neuron action. And it happens like that. We're trying to help them kind of, like you said, here, tear up this paper, do something to essentially satisfy that sensation in a way.
Well, what I tell people is you need to put a delay between the emotion and the action that comes from the emotion. Because that gives you that time for your brain to kick, your thinking part of your brain to kick back in. So you need to build in some delay. So one of the things that I talked about was when your boss is yelling at you, go, hey, boss, just a second. I just need a couple minutes to compose myself. I'm going to go in my office, then I'll come back, and then we can talk about this. Because then everybody's emotions have calmed down, and then you can get back to thinking. Because when people are yelling at each other, nobody's hearing that word you're saying.
Yeah, it's I think it's kind of like what the Supreme Court kind of does. They teach them, kick the can down the road as long as you can, put it off as long as you can. Essentially, serious. That's literally what they teach.
Well, no, but you were talking about this with prisoners. I mean, how many prisoners that have killed somebody? Because humans are by far the most dangerous thing in our environment, right? So somebody has a gun and they're angry, and if they only use the 1 neuron and they don't let the 5 neurons kick in, they've already shot you. And then they go, oh my God, what did I just do? I didn't mean to do that. I was just angry. I'm sorry. Wait, right? But then they're in jail for 20 years. That's, as you said, bottom up thinking. I'm just not thinking, bottom up reacting. It's the thinking that's gone away.
Right. So what I'm getting to understand from the Josh's reference in your description is that basically this is kind of a neurological aspect, and it's created in the sense of the brain. With that being said, what is to be said about the person whose brain doesn't naturally function the way that it's supposed to? Suppose they
Yeah.
have a TBI or a heavy
Yeah.
concussion. What's to be said to develop that person into the cognitivity to be able to apply these principles to their recovering themselves?
Well, if there's one myth that I want to get out there to get rid of, debunk, is that people go, you only use 10% of your brain. And I'm like, no. 100% of your brain is getting used 100% of the time. Because when there's a little bit of damage from a stroke or something, doesn't have to be big, just a little, and you're not functioning great. What we do have is 10% control of our brain. So we have 10% of awareness of what's going on in our brain. The term I use is directed awareness. So if you said to me, raise your right hand, my directed awareness would know where those neurons are to make my right hand go up.
So I do
If
have a
you said to
question.
me, change your iron level, I'd be like, okay, that ain't happening because I don't know where that.
So I do have a question then, because I've heard that we only use 10% of the brain. Einstein used 15% of the brain, or what have you. How much of the brain do we actually typically use on the average every day?
100%, all the time.
What do you mean
Plus,
by
the
that?
majority of your brain is monitoring systems that are automatic. Like you're breathing, right? Are you thinking about breathing? No, it just happens. The brain is figuring out what your oxygen level is and triggering off a sensation to go breathe, or it's figuring out what your carbon dioxide level is, your iron levels, your hormone levels, your vision. All these things are happening automatically. So all of your brain is getting used all of the time. Now you have some reserve, so okay, I'll give you that. But it's all used. But here's what happens: that we don't know. Like, do you know what your testosterone level is? No, it's there. Your brain does because it's generating things that raise it up or lower it down. But you don't know because you don't have awareness of it. Now, what you see is then, and this is what you guys do, is you increase people's awareness of what's going on. So one of the things that I talk about is the more you understand why you made decisions. Why? So when I was saying to my client, like, why did you get so angry? And she didn't know. And so we had to step back and go, okay, let's look at this, right? And she goes, well, when I was a kid, my mom used to yell at me all the time, and my dad left, so he wasn't around, and my older brother was my father figure, and he was a real jerk, and he would yell at me all the time. So you go, oh, now I understand. So when someone yells at you, you revert back to being a 5-year-old, and that's why you're reacting. So you now have awareness that you can change something. So I had a patient that, do you guys do hypnosis or neurolinguistic programming at all? No. Okay.
No.
You should hear the story.
No.
So I had this lady come in. I had taken the class. I've been in this class with like 30 psychologists and social workers. And they're like, I'm a social worker, I'm a psychologist, some of this, some of that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm an internist. And they're looking at me like, what? What the heck are you doing here? Right? I'm like, hey, come on, right? Anyway, so I have a patient come in. I've been treating her for 20 years for anxiety, panic attacks. She was seeing a therapist. She was taking Xanax. She was drinking alcohol. She would go to church. Nothing was really working that great. She continued to have panic attacks. It was difficult, right? So we did this neurolinguistic programming with hypnosis. And what it does is sort of reframes things, right? So if you ask her the story, like why you have these panic attacks, she would tell you the story that 20 years ago, she was working and this guy came into work and beat the crap out of her. And ever since then, she had panic attacks. That's her story, right? And you go, whoa, okay, I could see, you just think that guy's face and all of a sudden you're having that would make sense, right? So then under hypnosis, we go, hypnosis sort of turns down the outside world and turns up your awareness of the inside world, right? So as under hypnosis, she's telling me the rest of the story. So what turns out is she'd gotten hit and fell down and passed out. And when she woke up, the guy who had been beating her up was now beating up some other coworker. And so she had a choice to make. She could get up and help that guy, or she could just keep laying down, like pretending she was dead, right? So she got up and distracted the beater, the attacker, called the police, and both of them got out safe, right? So at the end of the session, I looked and I said, so you're a hero. And she's like, what? She goes, you're a hero. I was like, you risked your life. Like you were fine just laying there feeling like you were passed out, pretending you're dead, but you chose to stand up and help another person. That makes you, that's what heroes do. They overcome their fear to do something. So you're a hero. Yeah. And you could see your body language change. So the story went, her narrative went from I'm a victim, pain, no control, to I'm a hero. And you could see everything change, right? So in 1 hour, she went from panic attacks, horrible, to now she's a hero. And her brain's likes that idea, so it stays permanently, right? So 2 weeks later, she calls me. She says, Doc, we have to have another session. So the second session was when I was 8, my dad was beating the crap out of my mom and sliced her with a knife, and there's blood everywhere, and I had to clean it all up. And now I realize that's why the guy beating her up was such an impactful thing, was because when she was 8, she had already been set up with that same kind of scenario. So we did the same technique, and we went back. And what this rest of that story was, she felt like she was isolated. She had to clean everything up. None of the neighbors came and helped her, blah, blah, blah. So the full story was, she was 8, her brother was 4. She was trying to shield him from seeing what was going on. After the father was drunk and he left, the neighbors came and took the 2 kids out, and they helped clean everything up. So she didn't have anything to do with that. And I'm like, oh my God, so you're a hero again? She's like, what are you talking about? I go, you're 8 years old. You don't even know what's going on. You're at the freakiest time in your whole life. And here you are trying to protect your brother. And then you had a neighborhood that was so connected that they came and got you out and protected you even more, right? And again, so she went back to her therapist the next week. And the therapist's like, what you do? Because you're real different now. So literally in 2 hours of work, 20 years of work got changed significantly. But a lot of it had to do with just changing the narrative and reframing the situation to a more positive outcome, to be honest with you, the more accurate outcome. And so then her life was different because of that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, like you said, the changing of the narrative, and a lot of what narrative therapy is, where essentially, are you a victim or are you a survivor? You know, technically you can be both. Which way are you going to look at it? And I love the way you say it, Dr. Gary. You're like, hey, look, like, yes, this happened, but you're also this because of it, are you not? And it really just kind of, I'm sure you could probably see the light bulb in the brain just clicks, and it's just like, oh man, I'm back stuck in on the worrying part, back stuck in on the regret part, but going forward, like, oh no, I can do more than I thought I could do. I can handle more than I thought I could.
So there's another book that I got involved with, a guy named Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. So he wrote a book called Mindset Matters. So I was one of the co-authors in that book, right? And I got involved with the project because I'm like, mindset matters. It makes such a difference. So literally 2 days ago, my wife and I are visiting some friends in the Adirondacks up in New York. Beautiful, right? They're on the beachfront of a 9-mile lake, and it's like, oh, it's great. And they go, oh, you guys should go hiking. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we picked out this one place. It said a 3-mile hike. We're like, yeah, okay, we can do that. So we get the first half. We're a mile and a half into this, and we're not anywhere near the end. And I'm like, wait, what? So it turned out it was 3 miles one way, okay? Then the first half was okay, but the second half was like 60-degree inclines and rocks, right? And they were supposed to be steps or whatever, I don't know, but it was like a struggle. And then very end was like a 10-foot rock that you had to climb up somehow. And I'm like, oh my, what, right? And then you get to the top, and they go, oh, it's a beautiful 360-degree view. And you're like, you get there and like, okay, yeah, there's trees and there's a lake. Yeah, okay. And I just climbed 3 hours to get here to see this? I don't think so, right? Then we had to climb down 3 more hours to get back down. Now, here's the difference. So I go, wasn't this freaking awesome? We're like freaking old people, and we were able to do a 6-mile hike up and down these 60-degree rocks, right? Here's my wife going, no, I failed. And I go, what do you mean you failed? She goes, well, I sucked, and I was limping, and you had to wait off for me, and this was horrible. And
mindset.
Mindset. Gosh, seriously, you should be gone. I was like, honey, you hurt your knee, your hips were killing you, your shoulder was bothering you, and you still made a 6-mile hike in this crazy, what? Like, you should be jumping up and down with self-achievement. No, she felt like a failure. And I'm like, oh, which is why I got involved with the book, Mindset Matters, because mindset makes such a huge difference, right?
Yeah, it's like what they teach boxers. It's like, you don't go into a fight thinking you're going to lose.
Yes,
like, no, you go into it thinking you're going to win. Yeah,
absolutely.
You plan to win.
Now, that is only if it's not rigged, like what happened.
I don't do that. No, I get it.
Now, Kev, didn't you just listen to Dr. Gary? We're not playing the what if games. We're playing in reality, okay? See,
Here's a technique that I read.
Imagine a day where fatigue doesn't stand a chance, where clarity perks up your focus as the clock ticks on. Discover W Energy, the drink that transforms ordinary moments into opportunities. With no sugar and flavors that feel like gourmet art, each sip stirs your senses, readying you for greatness. W Energy is a focus energy drink that contains no sugar and is available in a variety of unique flavors. Their coffee fruit cherry extract is the star of the show. This ingredient is what makes W unique and helps to provide smooth and effective focus and energy, making it perfect for anyone who needs to conquer a task. W flavors are created with one goal in mind: to taste unlike any other beverage. We combine bold and unique flavor combinations to craft an experience for your tongue with each sip. W achieves its smooth, effective focus with a high-end tasting experience while using no sugar, no fillers, and no artificial color or dyes. Every product they create follows the same philosophy: be effective, be clean, and taste as good as nature will allow. Use promo code OneMoment to enjoy 10% off their products. And most importantly, they sponsor the One Moment podcast. They are helping to raise awareness of mental health, substance use, suicide, and much more around the world, seeking to make a global impact, reducing stigmas and changing lives one moment at a time. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about our podcast. Follow us on our social media channels for more information and to stay up to date with our episodes.
And it was called The Worry Trick. It was a crappy title for a book, but the book's young content were good. And one of the things he talks about, he talks about what ifs. And that's where people get into trouble. Oh, but what if? Oh, but what if? And they treat the what ifs as if they're real, which I understand why you do that. But what he's saying is your brain is always having these thoughts. And he said, so he thinks of himself as a surfer. So he goes, you're surfing the waves of your thoughts. And every once in a while, there's going to be a bad thought. And people have a tendency to go, oh, there's that bad thought. And then they stop and they freak out about it. And he's like, no, it's just a thought. So you're going to have a good thought and a bad thought and a good thought and a bad thought, but it's just a thought. So you're a surfer surfing the waves of your what ifs. And then you fill out your worry organizer. So if the what ifs, you start writing down so you can plan for them without fear. And so then life gets a whole lot better. But if you go, because you go, hey, I want you to don't think about an elephant. The first thing you do is think about an elephant, right? So it's like you can't stop yourself from thinking. So just think of yourself as a surfer just riding the waves.
Interesting. I like it.
Yeah. So then, let me tell you about the happy place, because last time I didn't get to. So when you start looking at the happy place in the different rooms, so my wife and I just had the luxury of going to Germany, right? And we're visiting this castle. It's humongous. I mean, it's, I don't know, 50,000 square feet, and it has like 18,000 bedrooms, and right. And I'm like, you know what? That castle has the same rooms that I have. It has a living room, and it has a dining room, and it has a bathroom, and it has a closet, right? So it had all the same rooms that my humble abode has, right? So I'm like, so what are the rooms of the happy place? So the first room is what I call gratitude, right? And I used to say contentment, but it turns out gratitude is more important to be the first one. So gratitude, and this is what I learned. So we're in this German castle, right? And I'm looking around, it's magnificent, right? Paintings on the walls and frescoes. The ceilings are ornate, right? I'm like, yeah, but guess what? They don't have central heating. They don't have air conditioning. They didn't even have windows. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't have windows? Are you kidding me? They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have TVs. They didn't have a microwave. They didn't have a cell phone. They didn't have internet. What? Like my little life, I'm like way better than the king of Germany was 300 years ago. Way better, right? But we don't think that way. Like we tend to pay attention. This is human characters. We tend to pay attention to things that aren't going well. So if I was in my office and I saw 30 patients in a day and 28 of them went great, and they were like, Dr. Sprouse, you're wonderful. Thank you so much. You saved my life, blah, 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 right? But 2 of them came in and said, you're a jerk. You're a jackass. You did this and you didn't do that. And you forgot to call my prescription and the insurance company, blah, blah, blah. When I go home and tell my wife, who do you think I'm telling her about? The 28 patients that told me that one. Well, 2 patients there. Yay, right? This is the way humans are. We got to change that. That's our choice. We can go, you know what? Stop focusing. I've been divorced, right? And I will say, when I got divorced, my ex-wife had a lot of negative things going on, right? But I was also willing to recognize that she had some good things going on too. And in fact, I would say 25% of the time were good, 25% of the time were intolerable, and 50% of the time was kind of whatever, right? But it was still enough to say, yeah, no, this has to end. But my point is, You have to be willing to say, you have to understand the gratitude. Patients will come into me and say, Doc, I'm falling apart. And I'm like, really? I go, do your eyelids close? And they're like, what? And I go, do your eyelids close? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, well, then, yeah. I have patients that they don't. Trust me, for everything that you have wrong, there's 1,000 things that are going right. So focus on the 1,000 things that are going right. So I have this exercise I call the 50-point wake up. So the 50-point wake up is I wake up in the morning, just in bed, my eyes open, 10 points because I'm still alive. Yay! 10 points because I can go to the refrigerator and get food. 10 points because I can go to the sink and get running hot water. What? 10 points because I have indoor toilet. What? Yeah, right? And 10 points because I'm safe. 50 points just by opening my eyes. Most people, when they wake up going, still here, gotta go to work, -10, right? No. Seriously, you have to be grateful for all the things we have. One of the things that, and I don't think I even realized this, like you have to understand, like maybe 200 years ago, people didn't read. Like maybe 5% of people in the world knew how to read. Me, I don't even wasn't that high. Like kings, queens, princes, maybe a couple of doctors here or there, right? No, people didn't know how to read. We live in a society where it is the rule that literally everybody needs to learn how to read. And you know how much power there is in knowing how to read? What? And now we have the internet on our freaking phone. So we literally have all the knowledge of the world on this stupid little phone. Do you know how much power that is? Crazy, right? Crazy amount of power. But that wasn't there 200 years ago. So we have to be grateful for all that kind of stuff. So then the second thing is we have to have pleasures. And one of the things that I realize is people think about pleasures as these big things. Like I graduated from school, or I got married, or I had a baby, or, I got a big raise at work. Like it has to be big thing. No, we were actually set up as organisms to have all these little pleasures. Oh, I found some berries. Oh, there was 10 of them, and I thought there was going to be 5. Oh, I just saw my friend from yesterday, right? Like we're meant to have these little teeny pleasures that by the end of the day, you're like, oh, that was a nice day, right? I had 10 pleasures, I had 100 pleasures today. Yay, right? So we just need to pay attention. And it goes along with mindfulness and gratitude. It's like you got to pay attention to these things. So you watch this movie, Castaway, that had Tom Hanks in it. And he gets marooned on an island by himself. And the first time he figures out how to make a fire, he is jumping up and down and screaming and proud of himself. Whoa, right? And I'm going, seriously? I just go like this and with a match and I got a fire. What? But it's just as big a deal as what he did. It's just a lot easier, right? But we take it for granted. So when we start using these as pleasures and being grateful for them, life gets much better. Then we have humans, and we talked about we have future, right? So we can anticipate pleasure. So my wife and I are getting ready to go on a trip that we're going to go up to Wisconsin and Minnesota and the northern part of the United States. And in my head, oh, this is going to be awesome. Everything's going to go great. The hotels are all going to be right. The food's going to be good. We're not going to lose anything. Nobody's going to hurt us, right? And what does that do? It makes me feel good, right? So for months, I've been feeling like, we're going to go to Greece in October. What? It's going to be awesome, right? So it's like, so you get months of having that anticipation of pleasure. Then the next one is fulfillment. And so fulfillment is this interesting idea, right? So I've met plenty of rich people who are miserable. And I've met many poor people who are real happy, right? So what's going on there, right? So some of it is this idea of fulfillment. So the fulfillment is really in 3 parts. So one is you want to learn. Like as organisms, we were set to be curious because we want to run around our environment and figure out what it is. So our DNA made curiosity pleasurable. So we like to learn. So that means reading or going to a seminar or whatever, listening to a podcast, right? Like we want to learn. That's good. That makes us feel good when we do that. Second is giving. So we're a very communal organism. So we're used to being in 50 people, right? And if you were struggling today, I would help you out. And if I was struggling the next day, you'd help me out. And that's how our band survived. And so it became a very pleasurable activity. So we like giving. So when people are willing to donate, they feel better. I've done some stuff in the past where I've been able to donate. And you're like, I felt better than the person who probably got the donation, right? But it's like, because we like that. Our brains are set up to like that. And then the last one is purpose. And this is the problem we've gotten into. So Tom Hanks, when he's on an island, his purpose was to stay alive till somebody could rescue him, right? So finding fire, finding something to eat, finding something to drink, trying to be safe. That was his purpose. So all his purpose in life was to stay alive, which is what humans used to be. But staying alive has gotten so easy that it isn't a purpose anymore. It's too easy. Like that can't jazz us up. So we have to find something else. So we become psychologists or licensed social workers or doctors or whatever. And that gives us a purpose. So my purpose has gone from being a doctor and helping people with their medical problems to being an author and helping them with these stress problems. But I still have a purpose. My wife went from doing the billing in my office to thinking she didn't have anything to do. And she hated doing the billing, but it gave her something to do. It gave her a purpose. So now she's like, what am I doing? So it's taken her a year and she's been struggling going, what do I do with myself? I wake up in the morning, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Right. But now she's figured out, like she's got gardening and she takes care of honeybees and she's been volunteering and she's trying to teach some cooking classes on how to help people when they go to a food bank and they get all those green vegetables and they're like, what am I supposed to do with that? Right. So now she's developing a purpose in life, which makes her feel better. And then the next one is what I call CASH. It's an acronym. So it stands for feeling connected and feeling in control. And we all like that. And then the A is accepted and feeling appreciated. And what I found as myself is like, if a patient was being mean to me, I didn't like that. If somebody said, hey, I really appreciate it, you're so nice, and they go, but I don't have any money for today, I'm like, no, it's okay. You appreciated what I did, right? Then the next one is feeling safe, which I think is a big deal for every human. I think that's the ultimate goal of every human, is to feel safe. And then the other half of that is spirituality. And I think I read some statistic, like 95% of people in the world think of some higher being somewhere. And I think that's that part of our brain that says we're one with everything. And when that part gets stimulated, whew, man. So I don't know if you guys have seen any studies on psilocybin, but that's one of the things that psilocybin does. It gives you such an intense feeling of being one with everything that you go, why would I ever want to do drugs again? No, this is such an awesome feeling. And I think that religion taps into that part of our brain to make us feel like we're one with everything, because we are one with everything, right? And then the last one is feeling hope. And I think somebody mentioned hope earlier. And like, hope is important. But hope is, again, that future thing where you're looking at the future going, my life's pretty crappy right now, but it's going to get better. And that's key, because what I see is when people lose hope, that's when they get suicidal. Because they go, my life sucks. And they go, and it's never going to get better. That's the critical piece. When they go, it's never going to get better, that's when I jump in and go, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
And the last piece is people would be better off with me not being here. You're like, oh, right? All the bells and whistles go off then.
Yeah.
So that's your happy place, right? So what you find is you can get there. It's not that hard, right? Like, you just have to recognize that it's there. And then, yeah, you can be there. Oh, so contentment is the last one. And basically, contentment is taking all that other pieces and using your mindset to go, you know what? My life is freaking awesome. Yeah, right? Because if you go, my life sucks, and you start focusing on all the bad things that can go wrong and all the bad things that have gone wrong, then it makes you feel bad. Then you're not contented. And so when you start taking all these ingredients to your happy place, all the rooms, and putting them into contentment, then you're like, well, yeah, life is awesome.
That's awesome, Dr. Gary. Thank you very much. Just kind of sharing with us a very condensed version of, what that happy place looks like, what the rooms look like, things like that. I do want to say, because we're getting very close to ending here, but I always
I talk way too much. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
We
There's a
love
lot of
your
information
energy,
to cover.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Your energy, like, it was phenomenal. Like, this right here was absolutely, words don't even describe. We were texting back and forth, and we're like, this guy's energy is freaking on fire, man. Like, this dude is phenomenal, man. Like, yeah, thank you. Seriously, thank you.
Thank you very much. But I just want to say, for all our viewers, how can they get one of your books? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah. So the book is on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble, and it's a paperback, hardback. It's an audio book now that just came out a couple weeks ago. It's an ebook, so you can get it all those ways. And what I tell people is, like, if you want to get a sample, just go to my website. And the website's thelessstress.com. And there's the worry chapters on there. You can just download it. And if that's what I tell people is, just read one chapter, because that changes your life. If you're not bored, don't read that chapter. Skip that one. Go to the next one, right? If you're overwhelmed, read that chapter first, because that might help you read the other ones, right? So then, but here's what I found as writing a book. I don't know if you guys have written a book, but when you're in counseling, you got one-on-one. You can see in the person's face if they're getting what you're saying. And if they're not, you back up and you try a different approach, right? But when you're writing a book, I don't have that. So I have to write the book kind of generically because I don't know what you're getting out of it. You might be getting something totally different than I was expecting, right? So what I did for people is my personal email. It's lessstresseddoc@gmail.com, because what I can do then is personalize what's in the book. Because what I find is, like, you might worry, but what you worry about is specific to you. And sometimes, and I'm sure you notice as a psychologist, that people sometimes need a coach to help them figure out. Like my client, like I was like, let's do, right? You can tell them all this information, but they need some coaching to help direct them to get there.
So you combine not only the education aspects of the book, but also your experience and that personalization aspect, that they need to reach out to you and be like, hey, like, I like this principle, but it's not quite, with my issue. But you might, okay, let's kind of twist it a little bit. Let me help you kind of make that your own.
Well, here's what I learned. So they call me a holistic doctor. I'm like, what? Like, that felt weird. I'm going to give you this funny story. Like, I like to dress up for Halloween. So one year I dressed up as Pitbull, the singer. So that's why I shaved my head. And then my wife goes, ooh, I like that, right? But so the first day after I shaved my head and I went to work, and I heard the nurse describing to the patient, and the patient was like, who's my doctor? And she goes, yeah, the bald doctor. And I'm like, who's that? I'm like, oh, that's me, right? So that's how I felt about holistic doctor. I'm like, wait, what? But then I'm like, no, this is true. So my client that was having anger issues was also having shoulder issues, which is one of the things that was contributing to her anger. Like, her shoulder would start acting up as the day went on, which would then make her trigger her anger. It wouldn't take much to anger because she's already freaking out because of her shoulder. So I'm helping her with how to figure out how to shoulder pain so she can then control her anger better. So when you put both of those together, how freaking nice is that, right? Yeah. So what I've realized, I have become a holistic doctor.
Nice. Very nice. Dr.
So
Gary,
the other thing
thank you very much.
On the website, probably in the next week or two, there's going to be an online course that people can take. Same idea. It's going to be 6 modules, and it's going to be, one's happy place, one's worry, guilt, blah, blah, blah. So you can just sign up for one of them. So that should come out in the next week or two. I just have to do there's some computer stuff in the background that I got to do. So
awesome. And what's the email again? Or what's the website again?
So the website is thelesstresseddoc.com.
Okay.
And then the email is lessstresseddoc@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gary.
Here's what I tell people. So I want to all your listeners out there, listen to me. Do not resign yourselves to being stressed out. It doesn't have to be like that. There's ways to get out. These guys will help you get out of it. Don't resign yourselves to being stressed out.
So, Dr. Gary, usually here on the One Moment podcast and with the team, we come to a collaborative decision that if there was one specific thing to give to the aspect of the listeners and people involved in this and listening to our podcast, what would be a call to action for you to give to them to use as a tool to combat their stress that they are stuck in?
How much time you want me to take to answer that one?
So it's a call to action.
Okay. So what I would say to is, like, don't resign yourself. So the first call to action is don't resign yourself. Don't sit in your room thinking this is horrible. It's never going to get better. I've tried a few things and they didn't work, so I'm just going to sit here and be miserable. No, you need to get out of your cave, that dark, black, wet, horrible cave, because there's answers out there that you don't have to live like that. My book's one of the answers. I think is really good. I think it will help a lot of people, but there's a whole bunch of other books out there that can help. There's a lot of therapists out there that will help you. Don't do it. Don't live like that, right? You can get out. Second is you have to be willing. One of my instructors said to me, everybody's getting an outcome. Whether they like it or not, that's a whole nother story. But the only way to change the outcome is to change the input. So if you're miserable right now, the only way it's going to change is if you change what's going in. But that word change, that's scary to people. So don't be afraid to change, because it will make your life better.
That's a great explanation and a good place to begin.
Does anyone else have that one moment where everything feels too overwhelming to handle? Fortunately, there are therapeutic resources where you will learn the skills necessary to bring clarity and focus amidst chaos, making everything feel manageable again. At Mindfully Me Counseling, we guide you towards clarity and calm with personalized therapy. Embrace your self-care today. Visit mindfullymecounselingplc.com to learn more. We sponsor the One Moment podcast. They meet weekly to discuss critical topics related to mental health, raising awareness on various topics such as substance use, suicide, trauma, family, and more. Visit onemoment.chain.box to learn more about the podcast and to be connected to additional resources. Subscribe to their social media channels for more information.